What's up, guys? It is JZNES back again to talk about some Tomba 2, that is. Yeah, the sequel to the greatest game of all time. Now, I mean, it's my favorite game, personally, of all time. The irony is that I'm wearing a Tomba 1 shirt. The original. I don't have a Tomba 2 shirt. I don't think anybody has a Tomba 2 a shirt or a short. None of them have it. Anyway, maybe people have Tomba 2 shirts. I don't know. To me, well, let's start with the history of Tomba 2. For me, anyway. I mean, the real history of Tomba 2, that's covered by, like, Tomba channel and stuff. Now, Tomba 2, this copy specifically, actually, is a game that I got a long time ago. I think in, like, middle school or high school. I'm going to say, like, middle school-ish. My brother gave it to me because we had played the original Tomba. Mostly me, but he, when I started Tomba, had played some of it with me. And he knew how much I liked Tomba 1, so for one of my birthdays, he got me Tomba 2. Great gift. I mean, yeah, you know, I was stoked. I'm like, oh, there's a Tomba 2. Didn't even know that. You know, and I played it, and it was pretty good, but very different from the original game. And those differences are kind of where the game's shortcomings come in. I like Tomba 2. I think it's decent. I think it's a pretty good follow-up to the original. But as a sequel to the original, it's a little bit disappointing, is the trouble. It carries over a lot of elements from the original, like the events system, which was great in the original. Here, it's less great. It's fine. It's okay, you know. There's a lot of events in this game that are pretty cryptic, or they just kind of come into play way too late in the game. Or, for instance, there's a thing called the Mystery Reflector, which I think you get at the very beginning of the game, and you just have to know that that's a crucial item for the end of the game. And so this, like, completely optional side event becomes this, like, totally necessary event for you to do. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, stuff like that. It's kind of cryptic sometimes. Near the end of the game, spoilers, I guess. Near the end of the game, you have to know that below the pipe area, you can, like, you've never been able to do this, but you can go down below the pipe area, and there's a whole underground area there, similar to the underground area from the original game, except it's not as robust or expansive. It's just kind of a side-scrolling deal where you just kind of go between some stuff. Whereas the original game was mostly a side-scroller that had some diverging paths, and that was really cool, and that was really well done. This game goes into a 3D setting, and now you're in 3D, and it's not really 3D, though, because you still kind of just go at weird angles and stuff, but they did a lot more with that. So you're, like, going on this path, and it's like there's paths everywhere, and it's just really strange and different. And it does work sometimes, but it doesn't always work. It's, you know, mostly just, like, they'll cross over or something, but, like, some of the weird angles you have to get at in this game. And I don't really know, like, where a lot of the, or how to do, I mean, I could have looked it up or whatever, but isn't the idea is you're supposed to just kind of figure it out yourself? I didn't really understand how to do most of the events. In the original game, it gave you hints, on how to do the events when you went to the event screen. That's why the event screen was there, so you could see what you had done, and you could see the hint on how to finish the events that you didn't have done. Whereas in this game, it doesn't give you any hints. You just kind of have to know, hey, this is a quest, and buy our guidebook, you know, or whatever. Which is kind of lame, because in the original game, they had that, and then they took it out for this game. Like, why would they do that? You know, and there's a lot of similar things in this game. There's another forest area where you have to switch between laughing and crying stuff. And I know the Mushroom Forest was different. It was more vibrant and stuff. That's my point, is it's just a forest area. It's like, it doesn't really feel like anything. Kind of feels like the jungle crossed with the Mushroom Forest kind of thing. I felt like the original game had a lot more personality to it. This game is just like, it feels like another Tomba that was just kind of a spin-off or something. Like, you know, like a lot of the characters, they have voice acting now, which is like fine, I guess. It's pretty hilarious sometimes, but I kind of liked in the original game where there was less voice acting and it was just more like they would make the little noise, you know, that kind of stuff. That's nice. That's charming. That'd be like if they added. Well, I mean, okay. Sometimes there's voice acting in Banjo-Kazooie, but my point is like, instead of the if they added like, you like, oh Kazooie, oh, you know, like it sounded really stupid and just not great. And, you know, voice acting's fine in this game. I guess it's passable. You know, it's really is perfectly okay. Especially for the time, but some of the lines are read very weirdly. And every time you go into a dialogue, you hear the same music. It just keeps going on and on. And I mean, you don't really hear that in the second half of the game, weirdly enough, or like maybe the last fifth of the game or something. I don't know, it's suddenly absent for some reason. But in the early parts of the game, every time you talk to somebody, it's like, da, 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 da. In the original game, it's like, you talk to somebody and it'd be the same music. They didn't switch music or anything. Why would they do that? It just doesn't make any sense, you know? It's just like, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Talking about the music, that's another thing. Like, what we're listening to here, that sounds great. Like, this is not what you hear in the game. The game is so glitchy with its music. Sometimes the music tracks will just go once and it'll cut out, and sometimes it'll start playing the music for the next area and stuff, and I'm not sure if this is just an emulation thing or what. I wasn't technically emulating it, but I had my PS1 disc and my PS3, so I don't know if I would do that on a regular PS1 or PS2. I mean, that's how I used to play it back in the day. I don't really remember if the music was like that back then or whatever. My friend played it emulated and it was, I don't know, about the same. Like the music, it's just weird. It has this weird glitchiness for some reason. I don't really understand it. I don't get why it does that, you know? In the original game, apparently only in the emulation, two practices that I've heard, like two instances of which I've heard. One was for me, was the Dwarf Village having really distorted music. This was on emulation, of course. And if you watch the classic Game Room review for Tomba 1, you can hear a really weird version of the Mushroom Forest as well, which I've never personally had happen to me, but it really sounds weird. And he also had the Dwarf Village music screw up on him as well. So it's just really interesting, like that kind of stuff. That's all emulation problems. Well, here it's like the music just like cuts out sometimes, and then we'll go on to another song or something. It's like you just loop the music. It sounds good. Like this song is great. You know, you only hear it maybe once, then it'll go to a different song. And it's just like, why do that? Like, you know, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I do like some of the atmosphere. I think, like, okay, like the pipe area, it's kind of cool. It's all right. Like the village, the original village is okay, you know. But the ice area, like we're listening to now, I think that's pretty cool. That's probably one of the better areas design-wise. I think there's a lot going on there. You kind of return back to there a lot. A lot of the side quests are there, and in the pipe area, there's a lot of side quests. The side quests kind of fall off later, though. There's not really a lot of them in the forest area. There's a couple. There's like, just like not as many as you go on. Like in this village, the circus village and stuff, there's not that many. There's quite a few in the water temple, but I feel like there's just like a lack of side content there for a bit. You know, and then like the other problem is like the pacing of the game is like kind of weird, because you just kind of go through, and I know you could kind of do this in the original game, but in the original game it was a lot better paced because there was a lot of side content that would open up to you slowly as you went through the game. And especially when you would purify an area, which would happen more often, because the evil pigs weren't just all forced to the end of the game like in this game. You would do a lot of side content because the areas would open up new possibilities and new things, and the whole area was basically refined. You know, the mansion looks completely different, all cleaned up, and there's different guys there and stuff. And then it's like the Phoenix Mountain or whatever stops like the winds. It's like clear now, and you can like go into all these new areas up there and stuff. And there's like the lava cave. Yeah, that was like you couldn't really explore it beforehand, so that was just like one. But people have speculated that that wasn't ever supposed to be like an evil pig one anyway. So that was just kind of like maybe a beta kind of cut thing. Because of the Village's civilization, which never got one. So, like, the jungle changes a lot, you know, there's, like, the flowers and stuff, the little guys don't attack you anymore, that kind of stuff. The whole thing changes, and there's new side content that opens up once you've cleared out an area, you know, and once you beat the evil pig there. I can't give you an example of something that changes in this game once you beat the area. You can now get a couple of new items, maybe, a lot of which don't amount to much. They're mostly just AP stuff. There's not a lot of like better versions of different weapons or anything, except for like at the beginning of the game is when you get most of them. Then you get the grapple, and that's it. That's the last like item that I can even think of that you would get. Mostly after that point, it's like the suits, like. But even those, you only get the water pig suit, like, later on. And you get the pig suit, of course. That lets you talk to pigs. Okay, big deal. You get the water pig suit. I guess that's kind of the substitution, is you get the bird suit and the squirrel suit. But you get those so early on, and you can just fly everywhere. And that's really cool. That's a really good and interesting and neat addition. You do get pants sometimes, which definitely does help. Like, me and my friend were having differences in the water temple of jumping onto this one ledge because you literally can't do it without the turbo pants. And so yeah, there's that, you know, like, so yeah, there's stuff like that, but like in the first game you were getting stuff all the time, and if you were really exploring you were getting lots of cool stuff, and there was little items you could use like everywhere, and there's little secrets to little items and stuff. This game just doesn't have as much of that, and that's kind of a problem for me, you know, especially coming off the first game, which is so good and so dense and interconnected and stuff, and it's like, oh, this area has like a couple of things. Cool. Most of it's just like health upgrades and stuff, and they kind of dole that out more to pad out items and whatnot. I feel like. Now, like, you have like a new companion character, so he can talk to everyone, kind of like a Navi sort of situation. He's fine. I can't remember his name. Charles is in the game. That's pretty cool. There is some additional side content that you can unlock by having a save from Tomba 1. You would get like 4 extra missions or whatever. That's pretty cool. I do really enjoy that. There are some cool things like these pig noses and these AP boxes throughout the world. The AP boxes really don't do anything outside of these pig noses, but if you get them all, you can like unlock this, I think it's one of the towers. There's like optional towers and stuff, like a strength and courage one and all this stuff. What area is this? Oh, okay. Kuchara's shed. It's the music that plays inside of there? I never heard this in the game. That reminds me of this thing, though. There's a mini game where you have to watch these like birds, and that was always the part I stopped playing at as a kid, or you know, before when replaying the game. I did play the game through and beat it when I was like in high school once, and then I never came back to it until just now. This is the only time I've beaten it since then. And the farthest I usually got was the ice area, which isn't that far into the game. But the game is actually like a really short game if you just go and don't really do a lot of the side content. Even if you do a lot of the side content, it's probably less than like a 10-hour game, I would say. You know, maybe if you're exploring like without a guide or anything, like it might take you longer, maybe like 20 hours or something, but it's just not a lot on offer there. I just feel like the original game is so much more dense with content. Um, like on its own, as its own game, like not comparing it to the original game, yeah, like it's a pretty decent game. It still has a lot of the well, that's comparing it to the original game, but still has a lot of the mechanics from the original game, a lot of the same items and stuff, but it doesn't have as much of the charm from the original game. I felt like the original game just was so charming, and it looked better too, because it wasn't like this weird 3D thing where we're trying to branch out and experiment or whatever. The art style is really well done, you know, and I just thought it was better built, and the secrets were better integrated. And I know there was a lot of kind of cut content from the original game, and there's a lot of great videos about that and like how that stuff might have been utilized. But I would have liked to have seen a lot of that kind of stuff make it into the second game, which it just feels like its own thing, and it feels really different from the original game, which is fine, but as a sequel to Tomba, you're just hoping for more of the original and some new stuff, which you kind of get, but you kind of also don't get at the same time. So it's just a really mixed bag of a game, and it does have a lot of good to it. It just doesn't strike the same chord or the same notion. And like some of the mini games and stuff are just like not as good as the original. Like the trolley game, like, really sucks. I remember doing that as a kid. We didn't do that this time around, but like, oh my god, it's so fucking difficult for no fucking reason, that trolley game. I can't stand it. It's fine, but it's just like, oh my god, having to complete that shit was terrible. Takes so much skill. Just stuff like that. And there's really not that many mini games. There's that one. There's the Kujaro washing game. This is the nice mini game or whatever. I didn't do that one. I remember that being kind of frustrating though from high school. I've never like 100% of this game. I really don't obviously care for it as much as the original, but I don't want to make it sound like I hate this game or something either. When comparing it to the original, it just doesn't stack up as well. So, yeah. But, you know, it adds to the Tomba world and the Tomba legacy as well. There are things that can be taken from the game to be enjoyable. And I enjoyed playing the game again. I like the game. It's just not as polished as the first game, you know, and that's sad to me, you know. It's like, yeah, I don't know. And everything's like less clear too. It's a little more cryptic and whatnot than the original, I would say. And a lot of that being because of the event thing, where you can't like just go and see like, hey, here's a hint towards finishing this event. Even if you talk to everyone, a lot of people don't even have anything to say. There's this whole thing where you like get turned mini, like in the last dungeon or whatever, and you're like, oh wow, now I can go explore all those little mouse huts or whatever. The only one that even matters is at the beginning of the game, and that's where all the mice mini game is, and the last AP box is, and the rest of them are just like, maybe there's something there. It's not really a lot to explore there. It's all just NPC mice that say stupid stuff and doesn't really end up mattering for any reason. Which is very disappointing, because you see these things throughout the game and it just feels like, man, there could have been some cool stuff in there, you know? And when you get there, it just becomes very disappointing. I do like how there's a lot of treasure chests throughout the world, but there's not a lot to find in the chests, and I don't really like that aspect of it. But coming back to them, there's a lot to do and enjoy. You get these like pig suits from each pig when you beat the evil pigs at the end of the game, and you only really use them at the end and like for like 1 or 2 side quests, like maybe. I don't really use, I never really used them for much. You do use them at the end to like kill these statues or whatever. All the evil pigs like have a bigger area now, and they're kind of like more dynamic fights, and that's pretty cool. I mean, the bosses are fine. it's still just throw them in 3 times. They're more difficult than the original game. I will give them that. They did try a little bit harder on that. But I didn't mind the minimalist style of the original game either. I thought that was fine. So, yeah. You have a lot of similar collectibles. Like there's the snow fireflies that you can find in the ice area, mostly in the town, in the ice area. There's some way to knock a rock down to hit the snow fireflies, but I never really figured that one out again. I've done it in the past. There's like a nest of them where you get the rest of them, and then you go and give them to this guy in the water temple like way late in the game, and it's like something you collected way earlier on. In Tomba 1, there's like this guy, and then you like fly up into the hidden village, but that's like mid-game. You don't have to like wait till the end of the game, you know, like, I don't know. It feels really weirdly balanced and weirdly paced. There'll be a lot of like puzzly kind of things and a lot of just platforming, and then there's like not as many missions in between, like I was saying, and then it's like, oh, here they all are at the end of the game. There's all the payoff to like everything, and it's like, okay, it's all kind of here in the water temple and stuff. I mean, I guess it gives you a reason to go back and explore through the world, but I don't know, exploring the world just isn't as much fun to me in this game. There's like more NPCs and stuff, but it just feels like there's less they actually have to say, and less interesting like side quests and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, it's still like a fun game to play. If you like the original, it would maybe be worth checking out the Tomba 2, because you know, it's the only other Tomba content we really have, so it's like one of those things you kind of just have to try and see what you can grasp from it, you know? It does add, like I said, to the world and to the gameplay and stuff, but it definitely goes its own direction with all of that stuff, and in that regard, it just becomes a very disappointing sequel. But it's a good game in its own right. It has a lot of good elements to it. It just doesn't really live up to the original, which is my favorite game. So in that regard, it was always going to get compared to the original, and it was always just more disappointing than the original in that sense. I do remember liking it when I first played it back you know, then, and I do like it now. It's just as time's gone on, it's like, man, I really would love to see another Tomba, and that's kind of coming in the sense of this Double Shake game that's coming. It's meant to be a lot like Tomba and Klonoa and whatnot. I backed it on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever it was on. So hopefully that'll come out sometime, and it'll be the real Tomba 2, you know, or like, I don't want to like disown this game from the Tomba series or whatever. I do like it, like I said. I did have a lot of fun with it. There's just a lot of things that aren't as good about it. But it's kind of got its own fun vibe to it, and it's in its own way, and it is cool, and it does still have some of the charm of the original, but a lot of it gets lost, and it's mostly because of like the world just feels more linear. I feel like in the original game it felt like it branched out a little bit more. Maybe that's not really true. It was sort of linear, but it just always felt like it was dense, and there was a lot more things to discover and do, and the world would kind of change over time. I don't really feel like this game has a lot of that, and that's kind of its downfall, you know? Like I said, the gameplay is still good, and they still added some cool new things like the squirrel suit and some of the newer items and stuff. Some get utilized, like the squirrel suit and stuff, and some really don't. And there's a lot of like really challenging bits in this game that just really, I don't know, they could have been like mitigated by some new items or something. Everything's not really as straightforward as it could be. You know, it's not always very obvious what you kind of have to do, is one of the problems. The soundtrack's pretty good when it works, you know, when it's not like glitching out and you can actually hear it and whatnot. Oh, yeah, for me, on the final boss, the track played once and then it just went silent. So, you know, it's a little bit disappointing. And you know what's kind of weird to me is that everyone is always like, this is the better of the two. Like, a lot of people say that, and maybe it's just because they played this one first or something, but like, I just, Tomba 1 is such a special game, and this is just, it's good, but it's not quite as special, and that just, that's where it comes down to for me, you know? Like, it's good, I like it, I enjoy it because it is a little bit more of Tomba, but it's also a little bit more of its own thing, too. And so, I feel like for a lot of people, maybe this is more what they were looking for, and for me, it's not as much of what I was looking for, but still an enjoyable game in its own right, if that makes sense. So, yeah, like, overall, I like the game, and I'm gonna give it, like, an 8.3 out of 10, but it is definitely the weaker of the two games, for sure. And, yeah, so, but, you know, if you like Tomba 1, it's worth a shot. It's worth it just to kind of play through and see what you can enjoy and maybe get some joy out of the fact that the similar characters are there and stuff, and see what it kind of adds to the world. I don't know. Maybe someday we'll get Tomba 3, and then there's Double Shake, of course. And I'll definitely review that whenever it comes out, because the heart of Tomba lives on in the Tomba Club and the Tomba, you know, the Double Shake and the community trying to find the secrets in the original Tomba and Tomba 2, which I feel like they've mined most of that out of there, but be interesting to see if they still come up with anything in the future, because I love Tomba. And Tomba 2 is a decent addition to the series, and it's just sad that it kind of, you know, didn't go over as well, and maybe didn't sell as well as it could have, and the series got, you know, shafted and didn't really come back. So here's hoping for a return, you know. Until next time, this has been JZNES saying keep it classic. Stick around for more reviews, underrated games, and I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ